Welcome to Shaman Man, a channel for spiritual growth and personal development. We hope you find this video helpful, and if you do, please like, subscribe, and leave us a comment letting us know what you think. We're glad you're here. Be well.
Hey everyone, it's David with Shaman Man. I am super happy you are here. I am getting swarmed by 5,000 mosquitoes right now, so if you see me lift off from this video, know that it's not my levitation powers. It was a bunch of mosquitoes who attached themselves to me and flew me away somewhere. So find me and rescue me, please. Jaclyn from our community was talking about boundaries with empaths, and meaning being an empath and having boundaries with others, and that she becomes depleted and reaches a state of overwhelm because of folks who come into her space, share with her, and she takes that on, and it's really not comfortable and makes her want to shut down, close down. You know, and the way it used to happen to me is I'd want to hibernate. So, you know, I'd be in a bunch of folks, be around a bunch of folks, and then feel this state of overwhelm, and then want to, you know, go hibernate for a couple of days to try to unfill my cup, right? And I realized it was a perpetual problem. So for me, I came to an awareness or an understanding that worked for me, that there's a couple of things going on you may or may not be aware of. First, as an empath, you're cleaning people. So when people come to you and they feel better having been around you, but you feel worse, and it happens repetitively, that's because you're cleaning them. And they're not aware of that usually, but I want you to be aware of that. It's not a function you can control. This is like, it's just part of the gift. It's part of having these gifts, that you will clean people whether you want to or not. You're like a big piece of energetic charcoal walking around, and all this stuff comes into you, and what you're supposed to be able to do is to transmute it and, you know, like cheesecloth, and have it move through you and not stick to you. That's my non-scientific approach for you, but you know, it causes a lot of disease, particularly for us. And so without some control in that, it is a perpetual issue for us. It perpetually depletes you because you are always cleaning everything around you. It goes beyond just people, you know. It's pets, it's an energetic thing. So it transcends just humans. It moves to almost everything. Based on your power and your control, you wind up cleaning areas. Now, this brings up an issue of geomancy, in that, you know, I believe that many of us are in certain areas like nodes, like energetic nodes, as pillars almost. And so what's funny is, to many of us, we felt we were weak, broken, you know, not able to cope with today's, you know, stimulus. And yet what's funny is, as you learn more and more control, you realize how really strong you are. You know, you're carrying your 100 pounds of stuff that does belong to you, but then you're also getting to experience the 200 pounds more stuff that belongs to everything else. And that automatically makes you a strong being. It's just that we weren't taught tools. We didn't have the recognition. We didn't have the awareness of what was really going on. So for Jaclyn and for many of us, this state of overwhelm becomes a perpetual state. And that's when your gift is not a gift, it's a curse. And we usually start off in this condition and feeling like, why am I an empath? What did I do to deserve this? You know, once you learn actually what it is you are. Which does give you some direction, but then it also creates some responsibility too, because this is something that you are going to have to deal with. This is something that no practitioner is going to wave a magic wand and take this away from you. This is actually self-work. And so with some teachers, with some teaching, with some mentorship, these kind of videos, if you can tap into that, what'll happen is you'll start to gain some control. So remember, we had talked about in the past, having will. Will is the means by which you're able to control your thinking and your feeling side. And control is the wrong word. Let's say bring into balance those things. So in this state of overwhelm, what's happening is these people come, and that's why it's repetitive. The same kind of people come because they're getting clean, they feel better, and then you don't. So the first thing is you clean people, and that's just part of it. And that's actually a beautiful thing in many ways, because they're unable, with lack of awareness, lack of consciousness. It's not their time yet to put all that together, whatever. But it's part of your place is to help make it better. And so that's really kind of a neat thing, if you can kind of perceive it in that fashion. Secondly, though, and this is really the key part, the reason the dis-ease is so great, the reason why your overwhelm is so great, is because if you're feeling -3, let's just pretend for a minute, and you have -3 inside you, then everything that's in that vibe, everything that's coming from that kind of space is going to stay with you. So the other key thing that you really have to do as far as personal work is to remove that -3 from you. So that's going to be a deep hurt, a traumatic experience, a misalignment between what you thought was real and the event that actually happened, which creates this kind of bubble of sadness inside you, or what have you. Let's say more of a negative vibe that doesn't really serve you. What it's doing is attracting, like a magnet. Those things are of the same vibe. You know about law of attraction, so it's very similar to that. So there's two things going on. One, with the awareness that you are actually cleaning others, and two, the awareness that you have something going on with you that makes it stick with you. So the way to get through this is, one, greater understanding, some personal work as far as, why is this occurring? Why does this stick with me? And working through some of those issues. But long term, what I want to share to you, the light at the end of the tunnel, and what makes this actually a cool thing, is once you're able to remove some of this stimulus inside yourself, that -3 inside yourself, I call it removing these rings. So you start with the low-hanging fruit out here, and like a target, you work your way towards the middle. Well, as you do that, the stimulus that you feel becomes information instead of pain. And that's a really cool thing. So the same person shows up now. You're now in a different space. You've done this work, right? The same person shows up. So you're still going to clean them, but the difference is you're not going to become depleted from that. The third thing I guess I should bring up is, where are you sourcing yourself? So most of us, because we don't know any better, and I'm going to bring up chakras for just a minute, but because we don't know any better, we might be fueling ourselves from your bottom chakras. A lot of times it's sexual energy with us. It's kind of the first 2-3 chakras down there, and that's where you're kind of like bringing your power out, right? It's a very limited perspective. And then you have some of us who are more in the heart area, and they're kind of sourcing themselves from that. Whether you're sourcing yourself from the earth, from your chakra system, and not a full flow, okay, just certain areas of yourself. The sun, moon, stars, whatever, these are all limited batteries. These are all limited material things. And so there's a point where you can't stay engaged there, and you will always fall back. It's really important as you go forward that you're sourcing yourself from source, not from the things that are around us. And that's a whole nother conversation. But it is the third element to this whole kind of thing going on here, which is, how are you powering yourself up? And, with practice, that changes as well for you, and it becomes a much easier, better thing too. And you don't feel depleted because you're not pulling from a resource that actually runs out, that you can't maintain. Kind of like this, if you view it as, it's impossible for you in your condition, in this operating system we're in, this body, for you to stay in love 24/7. That's why so few people are able to do it, and we write big stories about them, right? And those become religious books and everything else. The concept of that is immense, okay? Imagine as an empath, you're feeling somebody dislike you at a really great level, and instead of you transmuting that to, let's say, neutralize it, or just taking it on and it being okay, you're actually putting out as much love to that person that you're actually feeling the real story as you would somebody who really does love you, and you're feeling that. Imagine what kind of person we would have to be, what kind of being we would have to be to know in here the hate we're receiving, and yet it affects us not at all, and we're able to put out nothing but pure love back to them. Imagine that. So that's the pentultimate destination, right? That we could be in that kind of a state perpetually. But my belief system is that given the body we're in, given the operating system we're in, that's highly unlikely. And because of the limitations imposed by this, not necessarily the limitations imposed by any sort of energy thing. So if you're able to think about your role here in kind of a grander perspective outside of you. So what happens is you fill this stuff in, and what it does is you feel it's focused in on you, and you start to think in a personal manner. You start to think about you. It becomes kind of a self imposed prison, right? It's all geared at you and the self. And particularly a way to get out of this mode is to start thinking about what you can do. A quick trick would be, what can I do right now that would be of benefit or service to somebody else? It gets you out of the mindset of this is happening to me, which helps to create a contraction in you where you want to kind of ball up in a fetal position and go hide in a room somewhere until you can get your stuff together, right? What's funny is the counterintuitive approach would be to kind of expand out, which is what works, is to kind of take it a little more and realize that you're never given more than you can handle. But you're the one that has to decide that. Y'all remember, you remember in Star Wars, the earlier ones, and Luke Skywalker crashes his starship or whatever into the pond, into the swamp, and he's trying to lift it out with the Force, and he just can't because it's too big and too that. And little Yoda says, "Hey, check this out," and he lifts the ship out of the water and he sets it down, and the implication there was, you are the one controlling what you can and can't do. You're the one that are predefining what you can and can't do. Same thing here. If you know that you walk into this situation and you feel like, oh, well, I'm going to get depleted because this is what's happened in the past, and same person, blah, 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 guess what's going to happen? You're going to be depleted. But imagine if you walked into that same situation with this understanding that you're going to clean people whether you want to or not. And you say, well, wow, that's a kind of a beautiful thing in a lot of ways, because part of this beingness that you have can lift people. So you can bring people down, or you can lift people. So imagine the same thing. It's your perspective on what kind of area you can influence. Excuse me. On what kind of area you can influence. So, this is not a... Jaclyn, it's not just you. This is all of us. Like, it's not being done to you. If you can shift perspective a little bit and say, hey man, this is being done for me. This is shaking you up enough to say, something's got to change. But it's not going to change from an outside perspective for you. It's only going to change from an inside perspective. And it's something that you can handle. And it's something that we all can handle with a little patience in ourselves, I hate to say it, a little love for ourselves, because we know that we feel this stuff and then we start to think we're broken, it's our problem. Our mind says to us, you felt this stuff, it must be yours. Your mind is about this place. This stuff that you're feeling is much bigger than that, so your mind can't process at all ever everything that's going on here. It's just not possible. So you have to trust this intuitive gift you have to trust in the universe a little bit. You've done it your way for so long, you can always go back to that. But what if what if with this perspective you say, hey man, I clean people, that if I work on myself, that the information I receive in, these feelings that are so dramatic for you, don't become so much, it becomes information because the pain is removed. It's much like you having surgery, right? And you had a cut on your arm or something, and they numb it up before they stitch it, right? You still feel your skin pulling and such, but you don't have any pain. Well, that's the same kind of thing that happens when you remove a lot of those baggage inside yourself that creates the attraction, right, for this stuff to stick to you. So then it becomes just information. And guess what you do with that information? It puts you in a great place as far as you're able to understand things like a seer, because that's what you are. But then you're able to really help the other person out because you're not bogged down by all of that, electromagnetic, energetic weight. So think about that. That's really a wonderful thing. Now here's what's really cool. As you start to lift yourself out of this condition, then it's your beingness. That's your fifth element, right? This beingness. So you walk into a space, and not only have you cleaned that space, but everyone in that space lifts up to where you are. Two things happen when you're at a certain place. Either everything rises to meet you, you either drop down to meet it, which is not what you want to be doing, right? So imagine you're able to hold up this space, you walk into it with your beingness, everything around you in that space lifts up or it departs. Think about that. That's an amazing, amazing gift. So if you're feeling a lot of this, or as this stuff comes into you, that is something that you can fix. That's something that is, it's not easy to fix. I don't want to present it like that, but it's something that's fixable with some work. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel for that, and it's a beautiful thing once you get through that phase. So I think I probably rambled on a little too much for all of this, but this is really key. Like this question is the key thing between somebody doing something about their gift and somebody just living in a state of negativity, despair, depletion, and all the things that come with that. So I'm very hopeful that this is helpful to you, and I'm very hopeful that this increases your understanding a little bit so that you have the ability and the capability to understand this in a different light and to actually do something with it. And that's what you're supposed to do, keeping in mind that you're special. You weren't broken. This is out of grace that you were given this, but you have to learn to wield it. And that takes practice, and that takes a different level of understanding, and some of that understanding you can't get from here. That understanding has to come from inside you. In the Tao it says something like, how do I know this is true? Because I look inside myself. Till next time.